Hello guys, it's me again. This time I'm gonna try a little bit different of a approach for my videos. Usually I just show what I made this time and don't explain what the heck is going on there. So this time I'm going to explain a lot more and hope that you guys can follow me and understand what I'm trying to say. Okay, now to the actual video. Today I want to talk about budlines, how they work, how some different designs work, what they can be used for, and why they are so important for update suppressing. So I would say we're gonna get right into it. First part on my list today is what is a bud. A bud stands for block update detector, and it is basically what we used before observers were added. You see, I place a block here. The observer realizes that and sends a power signal. This thing does basically the same. I place a block here and it doesn't send a power signal, but it depowers that lamp and it would power the upper lamp. Yeah, how does that work? Basically what happens here is that piston is budded. So it is in the wrong block state, but it doesn't realize it. So right here we have the same setup. That piston should be powered from this redstone block. And that is because when Notch implemented pistons, he used door code. So the door is 2 blocks high, and if I power the upper block, it opens. But because the piston is not 2 blocks high, it doesn't get a block update from the placing of the redstone block, and thus not extending. So we need to update that manually. For this we can use a simple block placement, and you see it extends. This also works the other way around. I break those blocks and it is now extended without any power source. If I update it again, it retracts. And here it just basically does this automatically because it takes the redstone block with it when it extends, like this. So, how is this now useful for update suppression? You probably know what this is. That is a CCE shulker. If you just check its block data, we see it has the ID of a lectern. And if now the comparator tries to access it, it will not find the inventory it searches for and throw a class cast exception. This would usually crash the game, but if it is a player action, the error is caught and the game is not crashed. It just can't process any more updates basically in this tick. Currently it will not do that. If we can try it with this poppy, it breaks. That's because this block here is powered and the comparator is just taking its 15 signal strength signal from that powered block. If we turn it off, however, we can already see the comparator stays on. That's quite weird. And if we now break that dirt block, the poppy is still floating because the update got suppressed. Okay, that's cool and all, but what are some practical applications? For example, particle slicing, probably the most important one. We can, for example, remove the bottom. If I would actually turn it on, then we can remove the bottom, and so we can, for example, this is used often in iron farms or general in nether killing chambers, when the mobs just spawn in the portal and can fall through the bottom, which is way faster than pushing them out. But how do we now remove this block here? We could of course just build another suppressor with the comparator facing like this, but that would be way too much work. What we can also do is create a budline that will just instantly transmit the block update. For this we can, for example, just use floating redstone components. That sadly is patched in the latest game version, but it still works in most other versions. So we can just open this trapdoor, and any redstone component like rails, for example, or also comparators, they cannot sit on open trapdoors. You also can test this if you just try placing something on them. That won't work. But if we now update this comparator, it will realize that and pop off. And this is instant. So what will now happen if I break this block? That block will give an update to this, which will give an update to that comparator, which will then access the box, throw a class cast exception, and suppress the initial update. So we can just try this and see it works. And this is basically the use case for budlines. Transmit the signals a long distance, so you don't have to rebuild your suppressor every time. Here we have the same principle, just made a little bit longer. We can just flick all those trapdoors open, and if we now turn on the suppressor, we can see the poppy still floats, and those are ghost blocks now. Oh, and I just broke it because I updated it. But yeah, those are ghost blocks. You can just right click them and they will disappear. The next method is dust butting. For this we'll need to go back here to explain this. Redstone dusts. You see, it's usually a cross. And if I put some form of redstone component to the sides and then power it from below, they all will extend, because in each one there's one side pointing into. But if I now redirect it so it's a line, it will only power the ones that it's pointing into, not the sides. And then the interesting property we use for budding is that if it changes its shape, it doesn't actually send block updates, only shape updates to neighboring redstone dust. So they realize it as well. Oh, I may need to change my shape, I may need to redirect to this and this. So this is what we're using here. Okay, so basically how dust budding works here in this rail setup, we have redstone dust sitting on the block, so it's powered from below, and the powering block doesn't actually change its shape. Sorry. Then we have this block, which changes its shape into a line, so it does not power this block, so it does not power the rails. If we now freeze our game so we can see that better, we can see that if we power the piston, it will start extending, and because there's no more redstone block here, the dust will reshape into a cross, and then it will power this block, and then it will power those rails. But it doesn't send an update, because yeah, redstone dust redirection doesn't send block updates. If we now step a little bit more and the block touches the rails, this will provide the update that's needed, and the rails realize, oh, I'm powered, and that is from this block and from this block. And if we now retract it again, we can see that while it's retracting, so the rails do not get powered from this block anymore, they get still powered from this block. If it's now arrived, then we can see it is redirected to the side, so it doesn't actually power this block anymore. But the rails don't realize it, because we didn't send an update this time. And so we can just use those now as budded rails and suppress the breaking of this block. So if we just do this again, we have them budded, we activate the suppressor, and there it is, floating poppy. A similar design is this one here. This one uses detector rails to bud, and that works because a detector rail powers things below it, but it only sends update when it arrives at a block. So we power this, and it arrives, and then the minecart snaps on top of it, and that will power the rail, which will power those rails, and yeah. And if we now freeze again, we can see that if the piston is retracting, the rail is still powered while it's retracting, because the minecart is still yeah, it isn't really sitting on it, but it takes some time to depower. And because it leaves this block in a powered state, it doesn't send a signal, an update downwards that it isn't powered, which would turn the rails off. But because that isn't happening and the rail just arrives, then at this block it sends the update here on this block, but there isn't anything beneath it. So this update that it's unpowered never reaches those rails, which means they are now budded. And with this we can of course activate the suppressor and suppress this poppy again. Another interesting property about rails is this. You see, if a rail is powered, it will provide power to 9 adjacent rails. So if we power this rail, we'll get power till here. But if we power now that rail, we see we get powered. We can power all the rails, because it gives power to 9 rails in this direction and 9 in this. And the way this basically works in the game is you power this sends a power update to this, and that updates this and this and this and this and so forth. But if we now power this one, which is already powered, this does not happen because this rail cannot turn on again, so it cannot send the turning on update to those rails, even though they should be powered. And we can change this by manually updating them, like this. And now they are on, and if we now break this block, it works the same way. This one doesn't turn off, so it doesn't send a block update that it turned off, and that means that they also never receive an update. If we update them now, they turn off. And that's also how this one works. What happens here is that we firstly power this one, which powers all the rails until here, but that's not important. Then it basically powers this one a little bit later, like one tick. I can freeze again to show that better. So we see we have this delay, then this one is powered, they are both powered, then all of this is powered, and that will also turn on, and this now powers the rail that is already being powered from the redstone block in the back. So now, if this will just turn off, which I'll do by removing this button, we can see that firstly this one turns off, and now it theoretically is only powered by this one here. But because this rail is double powered, if that one turns off, they don't realize that they should have turned off. So what we get is just a bunch of powered rails, and they are budded. So if I power them, they turn off. And if we again try our poppy test, it floats. Easy. Two other really cool designs that I have right here is this one, the observer based budline. It is really cool because it automatically rebuds itself, and it's also pretty fast. You can also stack this thing, just need to include this little segment every 9 rails. Only downside is that this part with those 2 rails is a little bit annoying to build, but how you can do this: make sure this rail here is placed and this one, and then firstly place the bottom one and then this one, and it should just snap into place. If it doesn't work, try flipping it so that the facing up observer is on this side, because it works both ways. And to activate it, you place firstly a redstone block here, then here, and you remove it in the same order, like this. And if you now activate the suppressor, we can see an suppression. This design is the complete opposite, basically. It's not really reusable, but it's super cool if you just need one long budline once. For example, we have that CCE shulker, and we want to make one 1000 blocks north. we can just make a 1000 block long rail and then let this flying machine run over there once. So as you see, this thing flies, and when it reaches unpowered rails it will completely bud them, and that completely automatically. So as you saw, all the rails are budded. We will now turn on the suppressor and you see, suppression. And now we're coming to the more complex budlines, I would say. This one is also of course a self-resetting one. You see, it uses the piston and redstone block things, and it instantly resets itself. And the cool thing about this is that it also deactivates the suppressor while reactivating, because, in case you don't know, if you if you lead a non-player input into a suppressor, it will crash. You see, here you see in the text, you just cause a server crash, update suppression. In my case it does not crash the game because I have carpet TIS and a crash fix activated, but in a normal vanilla game it would crash. And so what this does is it powers this block while the suppressor is rebutting the rails, and it does this by lifting this block out of that position, so the dust redirects into the block. And because redirection doesn't send a block update, this doesn't actually update the comparator, so it doesn't crash the server. But when the comparator then gets the update from this rail turning on, it tries to check, oh, so where do I get my signal strength from? It finds this block and it sees, oh wait, that is powered from the side, so I should just take the 15 signal strengths and not look behind it. And we can see this in slow motion. If we update it, you can see it will firstly lift this block while the rails are still turned off, and then it will power the rails, and then it will just put the block back. And if we try this, we can turn this on and we see it works perfectly fine. You can also turn this design off using this piston right here, and if you then update it, nothing will happen, the rails will just turn off. And if you want to activate it again, press this node block. It's also pretty easy to build. I'm just gonna fly around it really slow so you can take screenshots or something. I will also include a Word download in the description if anyone is interested. And here it is from the side. Now a little bit more specialized design. This one is a Y0, or in this case a -46 suppressor, -64, I'm sorry. This is done using node blocks, which can also be budded, because you cannot place a rail at Y0, or the lowest possible position, because you always need a supporting block below it, which of course is not possible at the lowest place in the world. So we use node blocks, which get budded through the detector rail method, so we can just see it makes a funny noise, and then it also instantly gets rebutted. To stop the noise you could place carpets on there, but I didn't do that now. And it uses the same dust redirection turning off of the suppressor, and if we turn the suppressor on, we can see this works, and we can break the bottom of this portal and just replace it with random blocks. Here we have some designs to lead signals vertically. Of course, the first thing is the trapdoor method, because it also works upwards. You can just flick all of those, activate suppressor, and then see they all break, leave some ghost blocks, and more importantly a floating poppy on top. The next design is a node block vertical instant wire, it uses observers to rebut. So the observers just see that node block turning off and then activate a piston which fires a node block that redirects the dust. Here we can see that again. The observers knows that they redirect the dust, so it points into the node block, and then the pushing of the target block against the node block updates it, so it realizes it's powered, and then it's pulled back, which again butts them. The not so practical thing about this design, however, is that it can, for suppression, it can only be used once, because the updates that those things that the node blocks would send to the observers is also suppressed, so they don't realize they are powered on, and we need to butt each 3 node block segment manually. Also, it would cause a server crash if we do this while the suppressor is on. Because this is pretty stupid, we also have this thing. That is a vertical budline which uses pistons and target blocks again with redirection of dust to butt them. It is way faster, and it also works with a suppressor, which is right here. It also deactivates it, as you can see with this redstone, and this one I set up that it suppresses upwards, so from bottom it leads updates upwards, but you could also probably just turn it around. So if we just turn this on, we see, and it even works to rebut itself. So if we just do this, we can do this block duplication method. And the last design I want to show you guys today is a movable budline. This is a design that I made, so it's not quite the fastest, but it shows the concept pretty well. You have here the usual suppressor part with suppressor deactivation, rebutting, here the main line which the movable arm moves along, and there's an attachment on top which moves those blocks upward and updating the movable suppressor part, which then butts all those lines. Here the switch turns both of them off at the same time, so the suppressor and the budline. If we just enable this and press this node block, the whole thing turns on. And now we can see if we do a tick freeze and update this block here, turns off, and you can see all of that fires simultaneously. That turns off, those are on their way down, those moved a little bit up, which updated this piston, which also sent them down. Then we can see it just rebuts itself and then moves back to normal. So this of course also works with some poppies. See? Oh, the last one got updated by the downwards movement of this block. That was a little bit unfortunate. So here we can just see this again. And now the cool part about the suppressor is, you need to turn it off for this, that it can move one block backwards. So I just press this node block and the whole thing moves once back. Then we need to activate it again, rebut it, and now I can update suppress some poppies one block further in this direction. This is of course useful for making portal-based slime farms, so you can just move along on these obsidian platforms and lay your portals out as you go. Of course this arm here is pretty slow, so I also have another design. This is the free GameTick movable suppressor arm by CloseQuid. It is way faster, as you can see, and you can probably modify it a bit so it fits, so it can be used together with this main arm. Yeah, this was my little video, my little introduction to budlines. I hope you learned something, and maybe you can start constructing your own budlines now, or you know how you can realize your next suppression project. If you like this video, give it a like, leave your thoughts in the comments, how you like the new style I make my videos, and anything else? Yeah, exactly. I'll leave a world download in the description. Also link some important videos, maybe how you can make a CCE shulker, Igna's explanation to CCE shulkers, and stay tuned for next video. This one's gonna be pretty cool. Till now, bye.